Welcome back to a brand new episode of the Who What Now Gaming Podcast, the podcast for consumers by consumers, where we ask the questions: who are you, what got you into gaming, and what type of gamer are you now? I am your humble host, Josh Stewart, and today we have a very special guest, content creator, D&D enthusiast, a published author. Please help me welcome Jenel. How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing today?
I'm fantastic. Even better now. How's it going? You having a good week?
Yeah, I had a super busy week actually. I just had a session 0 for a one shot yesterday called Dimensions and Drones. It's a game that
Nice.
we're kind of basing story wise a little bit off of Samurai Jack. So all the characters are going to be these very typical, like stereotypical fantasy characters in a like comically stereotypical fantasy setting, and in like the very beginning of the episode they're going to be thrown into a future where their arch nemesis has taken over without like them there to stop them, and it's all
That's
about them trying to get
awesome.
back to the past to save the future kind of thing. So that was very fun. Session 0 we had last week. I also had 2 sessions of Fey Dark Eclipse, which is the main campaign that I run on my Twitch channel. It's 2 different adventuring parties fighting the same big bad evil guy, but in 2 different planes of reality. So one group is in the Feywild and the other's in the Shadowfell, and it is an entirely female and non-binary cast. So that's been like a passion project of mine for this year. And so we had 2 of those episodes last week, which doesn't normally happen. Normally, we have one that's on the first Sunday of the month, and then the other is on the last Thursday of the month, just because scheduling. But for this month, everybody's schedules were kind of messed up, and so we had it on the same week, and that was a lot.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
How did prep go for all of that?
For Fadark, oh gosh.
Yeah, for having two full. I mean, to have 2 full parties like basically operating in the same world at the exact same time. That's got to be a lot of prep work, right?
It is. I don't want to like spoil anything, but one group specifically, when they like make certain moves, it affects the other one a little bit more. Um, there might be a time travel twist coming up in that to explain that.
Mm,
So when I had them like in the same week, like that's kind of difficult because I need to have one of them first so that consequences can trickle down to the other one. So that's always a little bit of a challenge, but overall, like the way I prep games, I know what is going to happen in the world if the players don't interact. That's kind of like my strategy is I'll have like an outline of events that would happen if the players never existed, and then it's just me reacting to what like my players do, that butterfly effects off of that. So before I start a campaign like on this scale, I always have that outline done ahead of time. Um, so it makes prep like not terribly difficult. But yeah, like having to react to the other campaign's moves and stuff makes it like a little trickier than usual, but
yeah, of
manageable.
course. That is incredible. That is one of the most unique ideas that I have ever come across. That
Oh,
it is
thanks.
so awesome, and also that you are handling the 2 groups and one absolutely insane. I'm assuming most things get chaotic sometimes, but to
I
have
mean,
an
yeah.
entire world that you are making sure that everything is working the way that it needs to, and the both parties have everything that they need for resources and preparation stuff. Like, congratulations, that is a huge thing, so well done.
Thanks.
um I wanted to go into the content creation aspect of everything.
Okay.
You are on Twitch.
Mm-hmm.
You are a DM.
Mm-hmm.
You are also a TTRPG author.
I
Can you
am.
tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the first thing I published, last winter was the Festive Three, which is a holiday horror game where you're kind of brought into this festive version of Baldur's Gate and you fight the holiday incarnations of the Dead Three. So, Ball, Merkel, and Bane. So we have the like holiday versions are Santa, Bane, Dreidel, Merkel, and Krampus Ball. And you're kind of like in this like horror dreamscape, fighting these creatures, trying to save a little gnomish girl. And yeah, I don't want to give too much of the story away, but that was the first thing that I published completely on my own. I did all the art for it and layout and writing and everything. So that was my first project. And then more recently, I have been a part of Three Quills Publishing, which is a writing group with Margot Mods Games and with Talking XP, where we are writing Candela Obscura adventures. And we just finished our first Kickstarter for Blackout, and soon we're going to be announcing a much bigger book, I believe in October. So that's been very exciting. And I've really enjoyed getting to know the Candela Obscura system. It's made really well for that monster horror mystery genre specifically. And so that's been really fun to write for. And then, yeah, I have like a couple other projects that have taken a little bit of a sidelines recently on like the personal projects because I've been doing a lot of collaboration work, but I'm hoping to get back into some of my more personal projects in 2025. So
That is
yeah.
fantastic. I wanted to go back for the Festive Three.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really glad that you didn't go too deep into it because in November I will be DMing that one shot for
Really?
yes, for I
Yay!
have it is already and has been in my possession, and I've been so excited to get into it. I've had to get a group together, and of course the big fumble with all of D&D is scheduling.
Yeah, of
Scheduling
course.
is truly the BBEG of all of Dungeons and Dragons, and
Mm-hmm.
it is the worst. So we are set. I'm getting the group together. We are looking for one more member to round everything off, and we're going to be starting it in November, and I'm very
Oh, that's
excited for it.
awesome. I'm so excited. I can't wait to
Yeah,
see that.
I'm so excited. I've been going through it and reading it. The artwork is incredible. I love the
Oh,
layout.
thanks.
It is such an amazing, like, I congratulations and also bravo. It is so great. I love it.
Oh, that means the world to me. Thank you so much. We're
How
actually going to be having the Roll20 VTT is going to be up, I believe, at the beginning of November. So that just for information. I don't know if
Yeah,
that's something you use, but that'll be available.
wonderful. Um so how long did it take to from start to publish for the Festive 3?
I kind of went a little crazy on it. It total process was actually only 2 months because I did nothing else. Like
Wow.
I like locked myself. I had this idea and I just kind of locked myself away in my office and was working like every single day on it, not doing anything else. And it was like one of those things where it like popped into my head and I just had to get it out like immediately. I
Yeah,
don't
of
know. Sometimes
course.
I just get into these like artistic like time sinks. It used to happen a lot when I was doing more like oil painting too, where it my my creativity is either like turned on or turned off. Like I can't
Mhm.
force it, but when it's on, like I don't eat. Like I will like be in a room for like 9 hours working and like not do anything else. And with the Festive Three, it was very much like I had the idea, I had to get it out, and that was all I did for 2 months, like straight. Which drove my family a little crazy, but they were very proud at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. I fully can relate. I will sink all of my time into I'm a DM, I'm a player, I'm a streamer, I'm a host of a podcast, and so like when I get an idea and I want to make sure that I have everything prepared and ready to go and stuff, I will sink all of my time into it, which is also
Mhm.
really fun because I'm also a parent. So I
Yeah.
have to like force myself to be like, no, 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 I'm not neglecting anybody. Like I have to, I just need to write these ideas down so I can come back to them and stuff. And so I get it. It's
Yeah,
fantastic.
so I'm also a parent, and for the majority of our child's life, I've kind of been like the more like main one doing
Mm-hmm.
everything. And then recently my husband, I'm very lucky to have him like stepped up when I was like, hey, I really want to pursue like this dream of mine. And he like works from home and is like really like no argument, no fuss at all, like just stepped up and took over everything so that I could pursue all this. And that was kind of amazing. So
Wow. That's
yeah.
awesome.
Hmm.
Shout out to your husband.
Yeah, he's great.
That's incredible. Um, so I did see that so you have a group that you did mention a little bit earlier that I wanted to definitely dive into because I really love what it is and what you're doing, and I've been going back on the stream and watching, but you have the women of TTRPG for the
Hmm.
threads. And I really
Yes.
wanted to talk about that because I love this.
Yeah, I mean, it started as, you know, uh, there was this movement on Threads when it like first came about and was like, this bigger social media site that kind of just like took off. And there was this women supporting women like movement that kind of happened on there, which obviously like I jumped on, and I came up with the idea of like, hey, would anyone be interested in an all female and non-binary table? Like we don't really get that opportunity a lot.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a male dominated field. And so I had so many people reach out, and that's why Fate Arc Eclipse ended up having two different adventuring parties because there was so much interest. I was like, well, we have to incorporate everyone because I don't want to exclude anybody. So
Yeah.
yeah, and we ended up one group is kind of like my OG D&D veterans, like they really have been in the community for a while and kind of know what they're doing and everything, and I get to like throw a little bit messier stuff at them. And then my other group was a group of women who are Star Citizen streamers on Twitch, and they kind of had just started playing Baldur's Gate 3 and were very interested in getting into D&D. And so that has been really fun to watch people learn how to play. Um, we recently had a couple people who, for scheduling reasons, ended up dropping out, but like three of them are still there, extremely happy to be a part of the show. And we actually just extended our casting to more people so that we can have guest players on, and just yeah, so I recently like opened it up and we're having more people come onto the show. I put out the casting call, and it was I must have had like 50 people respond to me in 2 hours,
Wow.
which was crazy. And so now I have this huge list of guest players who are going to be coming on to both campaigns. They originally started out as 5 people in each, and now we're going to have a 6 spot on each squad for guest players to be able to come in. Pretty much every episode scheduled out to the finale at this point, which is awesome. Um,
Wow.
but yeah, it's been a very fun experience. Kind of getting to touch every aspect of what is so fun about D&D in this campaign, because like I said, I have my OG girls and then I'm also teaching people. So being able to have both of those dynamics in the same story is very fun. I think it makes it really enjoyable to like watch the series and like see like the different levels of players and things like that.
Absolutely. That is incredible. Also, 50 is so
Yeah, it was
much.
crazy. My
Uh
my my inbox was flooded.
yeah, I
It was a
bet.
lot. It was a lot.
Wow. What's the largest group you've ever like DM'd for?
Oh, with like my older like friend group from high school, I think we've had 8 at a time.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was in an older campaign that I'm actually going to be rewriting and publishing probably next year. I'm hoping next year. Which is the first world. If you're familiar with Fizban's Treasury of Dragons at all,
Yeah.
so in the very beginning of that book, there is a poem, like a epic poem called "Elegy to the First World," and it talks about how the material plane of Dungeons and Dragons was formed, where there was this one world that was created by Bahamut and Tiamat, and their first dragon Sardior, and how they created the first world, and that the Warbringer gods, so your like celestial like Torm and like those kinds came into the world, and there was a war, and during that war, the one world that Tiamat and Bahamut had created split off into the multiverse that we now know as Dungeons and Dragons today, with your different settings and everything.
Right.
And so I had made a campaign that took place on that first world, and like made like the whole campaign setting for it, and it was like sort of like a resting period between the war, where civilization had like sprung up and the gods were like asleep, and it was about them like coming back to life, and then or waking up, and the characters basically at the end kind of got to um, describe how the multiverse was created, like what that catastrophic event was and things. And so I've been very slowly, albeit, making that into a book to also publish on DM's Guild. So
That is incredible. Uh, where where does the inspiration for all these? You have such motivation and aspirations to create such like masterful works of art, and
oh, thank you.
I'm loving it, and I almost wish that I had a time machine to just go to the future so I could like have these in my possession. Like these are incredible. Where do these like inspirations come from? Is this just you wake up and you're like masterpiece?
I mean, I think most creators, kind of steal from their favorite media. Like you can
Oh,
see like a little
100%.
bit of all the things that have inspired me in a lot of my work. Um, I mean, a lot of it comes from when you're playing D&D and D and like a cool story beat happens and you're like, oh, I want to take that and make it into a whole thing. I think specifically for the first world, like I was very clearly like inspired by the elegy from Fizban's. Like I read that and I was like, why don't we have this world to play in?
Yeah.
Um, and for Festive Three, it was hilariously, I did not know that the Dead Three were the main bad guys in Baldur's Gate 3 when I wrote it. Like, that
Okay.
was completely on accident. The reason
Yeah.
I knew about the Dead Three was because I had DM Descent into Avernus, which is probably like my favorite module to DM. And so in the very beginning of that, you have the Cult of the Dead 3 in Baldur's Gate, and you don't like you get to do like a little adventure. It's like a little, low level adventure with it. And I hadn't incorporated that into my version of Descent into Avernus. In mine, the players actually started in Elturel when it fell, so it was like a little different. And I wanted to kind of like go back and do something with the Dead Three, because that entire thing is so fascinating, how like they took their power from this older god of death and stuff, Jurgle and all that. And I kind of just wanted to play with that. And I also just it really also just started from like the name of like, well, there's the Dead Three, what about the Festive Three? Like that'd be
Yeah.
like kind of hilarious
Of
but like
course.
terrifying. So that was sort of the inspiration for that one, and that just kind of took on a whole life of its own. And then when it comes to like our Candela Obscura writing group, I just have like very good writing partners that we bounce ideas off of. Like I can't even really take most of the credit for the writing. I do a lot of the layout and graphic design for that group, and like the stories kind of come about of us, like we'll have like meeting, like very similar to this, and we kind of just like spitball ideas and stuff, and we're very good at like riffing off each other and getting somewhere that's great. So and that's been really fun because that's like the first group writing that I've done in a very long time, definitely in a professional setting. Um, and so that's been a really fun experience, like having someone there to like work off of, which has been
Yeah,
great.
that's incredible. I love that so much. I was I've also been inspired by Descent into Avernus, or jeez and Pete, Descent to Avernus. What I'm whatever. I'm butchering it.
You're
Anyway,
fine.
the fun times. But I've created my own spin-off story type of thing, kind of like homebrewed, but I'm taking a lot of the ideas from the world and setting and events and such. With my like personal like home group kind of thing, and so we are currently going through all the 9 layers of hell,
Oh,
and
nice.
I am loving it so much. And yeah, just about the same. We had a. I've always wanted to do a very like artistic spin on like how a game begins. I've been. Oh, my camera's being crazy. So darn camera. We always argue every episode. I'll tell you. But I've loved that every campaign always starts in such a in a generic way. Yeah, you walk
Mhm.
into a tavern, you see people in the tavern. You're sitting down. It's raining outside. You're getting in from the cold. This is the standard. Like, hey, this is where things start. And I was like, I've been a DM for so long that I'm tired of starting these games like this.
Mhm.
And so I was
Completely
like, I
understand that.
want to try something entirely new. I wanted to start where a campaign ends.
Mm.
And so I decided, you know what, I've never DM'd for a group above level 10. A lot of the times scheduling, maybe games just kind of end. To go from 1 to 10 typically takes a long time.
Mhm.
And for like a dedicated group to make it that far takes a while. And so I decided that, you know what, we're going to start a completely fresh campaign. We're going to go through the 9 layers, and I'm going to start with the group at level 10 in a full-fledged like BBEG like end game boss battle.
Oh, I love that.
um, but the twist is that, and everyone knows, like at least how the beginning of this game is going to begin.
Mhm.
Try your best, but I'm giving you 3 rounds to do your best, and then you're all done. Like the game starts, and you lose the battle. What happens in a campaign where in my version of how this world's going to work, that when you lose, like there is no like coming back immediately, like there is no resurrection, there is no revivify within like a short amount of time. You're done. And so what happens when you fight this enemy, and then you wake up in the first layer of hell?
I love that.
Where do we go from here? And
Mhm.
then of course I have the thing that's going to be something that's going ongoing throughout the campaign, where for some reason they remember why they're at the castle. They remember why they made it up to the top area. They remember why we're doing this, that, and the other thing, but they don't remember the mission that they were on that brought them to here, to the fortress. And they don't remember like who, like a whole lot of, so like they remember a lot, like bits and pieces of their history, which allows me to have that freedom to be like, hey, these things happened in your past, because we're starting at level 10 at the end of a
Mhm.
campaign. And it has been so fun to have finally been able to like allow myself that freedom of like a fully like home invented like homebrew, like this is where I'm going nuts, and I'm gonna see what happens.
I mean, that sounds really fun. I had began to write kind of a similar concept, but I was taking the 9 hells and I was making a module that was like Dante's Inferno, um, where you traveled through, except it was called Mordenkainen's Inferno, and the players were following a notebook by Mordenkainen about the Nine Hells. And they were hired by Volothamp Gader to go through the Nine Hells. One of the players was actually playing Rainier Neverember, which was hilarious, to have him and Volo like interact as
Yeah.
sort of like the Dante and Virgil of the story.
Mm-hmm.
It ended up fizzling out a little bit because of scheduling conflicts. I don't know if we're going to be able to bring it back, but for that one, I was looking at. I don't know if you've read it, but Chains of Asmodeus.
I've not, but it is on my list.
It's really well done with like the Nine Hells and really fleshing out certain things. Like, I highly recommend checking it out for your campaign, just like to spark some ideas. It was extremely useful for me. I literally read Chains of Asmodeus, and then like I was still like continued the game that I was playing, but I stopped writing my module because I was like, oh, they already did it. Like, I don't
Yeah.
need to do it. Like, this has been done, and it's like perfection. So yeah, I highly recommend checking it out. But I love everything that has to do with the Nine Hells and D&D. Like, it's such a cool
Yes.
setting.
Of course.
Yeah.
That's why I 1000% agree. And there when I first started playing Baldur's Gate 3 in like the very, very, very beginning of the game, and you have all the cutscenes and you're just like, plane shifting, and I was like, oh, are we going into like the hells? And then we dip out, and I was like, what? Like I love it.
Many moments from Baldur's Gate 3 where, as like a fan of Descent into Avernus, I was like fangirling.
Yeah, of course.
Like when you meet Ravengard, and I was like, what is he doing here?
I know.
And then you like, I feel like a lot of people don't even realize that like Will's whole backstory, where he's like, well, Ravengard was gone and I had to go stop these cultists of Tiamat. And I was like, wait, does that mean like canonically Arkan the Cruel like succeeded in Descent into Avernus, and the Call of Tiamat was resurrecting her at that moment? Like, are you like, that's something important to know, that like that had a canonical ending, or the fact that Karlach's story was tied to Zariel, and so like the entire game, like I'm playing it like, oh, this is great.
Have you finished Baldur's Gate 3?
So I haven't, because I'm a crazy person, and the way that I'm playing it is that I have like 4 games at the same time that are different like playthroughs. So like I have my dirge, and then I have my tab that's good, and my tab that's bad, and my tab that's romancing this person, and I play them all at the same time. Not like physically like playing them on the screens at the same time, but I play each one of them up into a certain point, and then I go to the next one and I play that one to a certain point, so that I experience all the options all at the same time.
You're seeing the whole multiverse at the exact same moment.
Look, I'm a little bit of a completionist, so it's just
I love it.
In game, I just got all of them to Baldur's Gate. So
oh my god,
we're a little behind.
A little bit, just a little bit,
but it's still very fun. So
no, absolutely, I love it. I'm also the same way, but I don't play them all at the same time. I do a full run, and then I'm like the moment
like a normal human.
Well, the moment that the credits roll, I'm like, bring it back. We're doing it again, and it is so fun. We're streaming one version on Twitch, and it's been super fun, but it was finally like, I don't ever check how many hours I put into a game,
sure,
because I enjoy the game, and then I was looking at it, and I was like, well, we're approaching 600 hours into this game, and I was like, well,
it's a time sink for sure.
Yeah. I was like, I don't think I've ever done anything for 600 hours. This is nuts, and I'm still loving the game so much, and it is beautiful. It is such an amazing game.
Sure.
I can't. So I'm playing it on the PS5, so I'm very excited for September where we're getting patch 7, which is introducing the mod community to Baldur's Gate 3. And I'm just excited because I've played the game so many times and so many different versions.
Yeah.
I'm just excited to play more stuff that like have access to more things. Like, I don't think people understand how much I love this game. I love this game so much.
It's a great game.
It's so good. It's the best. So have you been like soloing the Baldur's Gate 3 experience, or do you have like one game where it's a group?
So I don't have an actual like full game where it's a group, but I've played in the multiplayer mode like a couple times. Specifically on my birthday last year, me and a bunch of friends were messing around in Baldur's Gate 3, and that was a lot of fun. I was playing like an OC, and then they all played the like canon characters and were acting it out, and it was so funny. That was really fun. But yeah, so like I've dabbled in the multiplayer mode, but I don't have like a full campaign that's in it.
Who is your favorite companion?
I mean, it's Asterion for personal reasons.
That's what I'm talking about.
Definitely an Asterion girly for sure.
I'm 1,000% on that boat. Are you kidding me?
Look, it's a well-designed character, everyone. All right.
Yeah, 100%.
I can fix him.
Yeah. Listen, I tried fixing him the first 2-3 playthroughs. I'm gonna keep playing this game until I get the outcome that I need to feel whole. All right,
I get that.
And that's where I live my life. I went to I ended up going I went to Too Many Games convention, and I was super pumped to just kind of see and do as much as I possibly could. And then I found out that Neil Newbon, the voice of Astarion, was there, and I spent about 2 hours in line to meet Neil Newbon, and I was like, this is my life now. I'm going to go and get the autograph. I'm going to go get a picture. Like, I was like, this is the rest of my day, and I don't regret a single thing. It's my favorite.
No, it checks out. Correct decisions.
Thank you. See, I need the justification, honestly. So let's go back into like Dungeons and Dragons.
Sure.
This is it's a very how do we say it? It's a complex game, but it's definitely, it can be very user friendly. It's a good it's not terrible to introduce friends into playing the game, but eventually you get so used to the game. You get a party that knows exactly what they're doing. You have that trust between players, the DM, the setting, the story, and everything. Have you ever had any absolutely bonkers moments like happen? Anything that was either completely derailed a campaign, all the way to the best D&D moment you have ever had?
Okay. The best D&D moment I've ever had, I like know specifically what that is. Derailed a campaign. I don't think I've ever had that moment as a DM, simply because like I encourage my players to do the crazy thing. Like I don't go into it with like a set outcome that I want. Like I said before, my prep is like, I know what happens in the world if they don't exist.
Right.
And anything that they do is part of the plan. You know what I mean? So I don't really have like a set ending generally for things. As an example, in my Descent into Avernus campaign, we got to the final battle, they completely freaking ignored El Terrell being pulled into the river Styx. Like, could not give a shit less about that. They were kind of all evil by that point, because you can get corrupted in the hells. And in my version of it, I had kind of like made Archon the Cruel a bigger character because I'm a huge fangirl for that. And so like they had like these rivaling parties that had been going after the Sword of Zariel. And so in this like final battle, when you know there's the demons from the abyss and the devils of hell like kind of having the infernal war there, and they were like, they had the Sword of Zariel and they like went to her to like kind of resolve that situation in like the conversation way.
Right.
uh Archon showed up and was like trying to release Tiamat like into the battle and stuff, and my players saw him, saw the hand of Vecna, and were like, we're bad enough that we could take on Archon, and they all went to get the hand of Vecna instead, and we're like, Elturel can fall into the river Styx, that's fine, we want that. uh, and so just like reacting to my players and like, you know, so it didn't derail the game, like it just changed what it was about.
Right.
So I've never really had like that moment of me being like, damn it, they did something that like messed up my plans. Like that's, I don't have plans.
That's awesome.
So
That is awesome. I sometimes fear that I plan too much, and then when things go maybe in a different direction, there's a little part of my brain that just panics because I want
yeah.
I want to make sure that the experience for my players is always, you know, amazing. But if something happens and I wasn't prepared for it, you know, I'm solely, you know, relying on my ability to improv. And as much as I will give myself, you know, a pat on the back for, you know, my improv skills, it sometimes it is like a terrifying, you know, situation.
Oh, it's, I freeze up every time someone's like, "What's the name of this NPC?" And I'm like, "I'm sorry, they don't have a name.
Yeah.
Their name is Goblin 4, and
1,000%.
I don't know."
Yeah.
I will say, like in my Feydark Eclipse campaign, what I get away with a lot is if someone's like, "Oh, what's their name?" I'll be like, "They don't know their name. They gave it to a Fey."
Oh,
Um,
that's brilliant.
That's been like my default, and I've probably said it too much at this point that they're gonna start catching on that that's just me panicking. But yeah, so I'll just be like, they don't know their name.
That is
Name gone.
I
Fairies
hope
be like that. I don't know what to tell you.
this is now the one episode I hope none of my players listen to. This
Yeah,
is going
which,
to the
honestly,
top of my ability chart here.
it ended up being really funny because when I do that, they're like, "Oh, so we get to give them a name," and I'm like, "Yeah," and then they
Yeah.
become more invested in the NPC. They care about it more because they named it. So like, yeah, that's been fun.
Have you ever had a like a character that maybe like reoccurs in all of your campaigns, and then
I
you
do.
love this character so much that it's always popping up in all of your campaigns?
Yeah, so my first D&D character ever, originally her name was Jinx, and then we ended up changing her name to Epoxy later for marketing reasons. But she was a little chaos gremlin. She was like a drow, um rogue druid, and her whole
Nice.
thing was collecting teeth. Like she was just like
Nice.
this little gremlin of a character. And so when moving forward, like after that campaign, when I started DMing, I would put her into all my campaigns as having this little shop called Poxy's Teeth Emporium, where players could go, and if they collect the teeth from creatures they, you know, kill or whatever, they can have magic items made for them and things like that. There's also a mechanic if you want to take out your own teeth and have a magic item that's like crafted for you. Like it's like borderline real real
Yeah.
creepy. But so she pops up in pretty much every campaign that I run at some point. And eventually I have like half of it written. I'm going to be making Apoxy's Teeth Emporium module, where it is, so the whole like concept behind it is that there are 8 different story routes that have these like a big bad evil guy, you know, and they each have a different one. And then there are adventures, one for each level, 1 through 20. And you can apply any of the story routes to those adventures. So it's, you know,
Nice.
really gosh, I can do math. So 9 times 20. So adventures that you can do total.
Right, of course.
But yeah, so that's something that I've been working on for a while, and the nice thing about it is that it can either be a solo campaign, or the like kind of magic thing about the Emporium, because I ended up putting it in every single campaign that I've done, is that I gave it like an extra dimensional quality, so like it can be anywhere. And so you can also just pop it into your campaign for like a story beat or something, and then it disappears or whatever. Very similar to like the Wandering Emporium in once again in Descent into Avernus.
Yeah.
So that's eventually something that I would like to publish. That's really like the first idea I ever had for a D&D module, but it's like my baby, so like I'm like it's I'm gonna be working on it for a while.
Of course.
But yeah. Oh, and then you had asked about best D&D moment before.
Yeah, sorry. Raging ADHD. I just kind of usually let it drive, and then yeah.
So I had the bucket list experience of putting a bag of holding inside of a bag of holding. That was wild. So I was in a Waterdeep Dragon Heist game. I had made a character named Blitz Avionisets, who is actually the character that I play in Baldur's Gate 3 that I stream on Twitch. She is a blue dragonborn rogue, because I didn't know anything about Waterdeep Dragon Heist when I made the character, so I made a dragon who has to do with water and steals things. Because that's
all right.
I was like, I got these 3 words in the name, and that's what I'm working off of. So she also like has she's from a shipping family, so she has like a ship and stuff. And so we were in, gosh, where were we? It's like the Underdark area of Waterdeep. I forgot the name of it, but it's like these docks. Jarlaxle has like a base there that I know of. So we were like in this area, and there was a mind flare that had taken over our barbarian's brain. And our barbarian was incredibly OP, so there was no way we were gonna be like he's a Dampier barbarian totem warrior. And so 2 of the other party members were down. It was me and the guy who's being controlled by the mind flare. So like they're like we were all gonna die or something. Like it was gonna be a TPK potentially. And so I took a bag of holding and put it into a haversack and threw it at the mind flare. And then my GM was like, "You can do that. That is going to open up a portal to the astral plane. You have to hold on to the pole that's next to you to not be sucked in yourself, and it's gonna be a really high DC." I was like, okay. And he's like, "And you have disadvantage." It's like, okay.
What?
I rolled 2 nat 20s.
What? 2 of them?
2.
Isn't well, I don't know.
I don't know what the odds are on it. It was nuts though. I was screaming. I was taking pictures of my it was nuts. I was losing my mind.
Just
so I was able to hold on. The mind flare got sucked into the astral plane, and battle over. So that's
awesome.
Definitely my most that lives rent free in my brain forever.
Of course.
That's the most epic thing that's ever happened in a game for me, for sure.
Of course. Why would it not? That is incredible. Wow. That is like the ultimate D&D moment. That is like the moment we all hope to get. That's like getting the golden ticket in the Willy Wonka chocolate bar. That is the
crazy.
perfect. It is so awesome.
Absolutely insane.
Oh man. And it was how was your DM after that? Did you guys have to take a 5-minute break for him to
No, I mean they when the dice tell a story, that's the correct story. So.
Of course. Of course.
But yeah, no, everyone was screaming, and it was a wonderful moment.
Yeah, of course. That's yeah. I'd be the one in the background, just like running around the table. Ah! I love those moments. I
Mm-hmm.
love. See, I as a DM, I love when and actually I would love to get, your input on this as well.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to like nat 20s and stuff, there is the baseline through all of like Dungeons and Dragons where it is like, hey, it's a nat 20, it's supposed to be this big epic moment, but I've been in situations where they say like a nat 20 is like, oh, well, it's it doesn't change the fact that something's not there, or it doesn't change the fact that something can't still be done or whatever. But I've always loved honoring a like the nat 20 to
Mm-hmm.
its maximum potential. And I do it within, skill checks all the way to in combat, to the point where we have a homebrew rule in combat that I've slightly changed because I feel like a nat 20 should be honored at a higher level.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which is basically that, I think it was a rule in 4.5 or something like that, but like when a player character hits and they get the natural 20, I just take the maximum damage that they could possibly do with that character and then plus their roll. And then I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
because it always drove me crazy when it says, oh, you can just roll an extra dice. And I'm like, well, that gives you the potential of getting 2 1s. And like, that
Yeah,
doesn't feel epic to
it
me, you
doesn't.
know? And so when it comes to like honoring natural 20s, how do you go about it as a DM?
It depends. So a lot of the times we're using roll 20 just because of distance and things like that. And that already has kind of the built-in system of it rolls damage twice, and then what I normally do is double that. Um,
Oh, that's a good
mhm.
idea.
And then if we're playing in person, I do a similar thing where it's max damage off the bat, and then you also get to roll damage on top of that. So those are kind of like the two
Nice.
different things that I do. And then generally, a large enough hit is gonna like substantially affect what you're hitting.
Of
So whether
course.
that's like you remove an arm or you blind them, or like
Nice.
it's gotta affect the battle in a substantial way for sure.
Fantastic. And how do
Mhm.
you approach that during like skills checks or like
Oh, I always honor a nat 20. I know,
perfect.
it's technically not supposed to matter, I guess, if like the DC is higher than like what they can achieve, but if they can't do
Yeah.
something, they don't roll for it. Like I'm never like that asshole that's like roll for this. Oh, it's impossible to like then you just say it from the beginning. You
Right,
just say
right.
from the beginning, "Oh, you look at this and the mechanism is like, far beyond what you could possibly
Of
understand,"
course.
or
Why
something
waste
like
the
that.
player's time?
Cuz that's not fun. Like what
100%.
Yeah. So yeah, anytime they get a nat 20, it's going to change the game in a substantial way or give them a victory that they wouldn't generally have for sure. Because
Of
that's the
course.
whole point. Everyone wants to feel like they did like the good thing. But I also on the other end of that, like when you get a nat one, like stuff happens
Yeah, of
regardless of
course.
what the situation is. That's gonna affect you guys. So yeah, respect the
Yeah.
extremes.
Yeah, 100%. I think I think at least for me, because I love the player experience so
Mhm.
much, I will sometimes, like when things are like a natural, like if I have an enemy and I'm attacking the players and I roll like a natural one or something, like there's always something like that's going to happen, or like it affects,
Mhm.
maybe the enemy that the players like maybe don't notice, so it's something that I'll bring up, afterwards or something, making that like, the next hit like a lot more potent or so. But a lot of the times when like a player character gets like a natural one, unless there is like a very funny situation, I'll usually like downplay it just a little bit, because like I
All right.
enjoy like the continuation of a story. But it is always really funny to me, and I don't know why it's always funny to me, but it always brings me so much joy when someone is trying to be sneaky and they're going through like the woods or something,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, I'm gonna sneak up on this camp, and I go, okay, we'll roll for stealth, and it's like natural one, and I'm like, how does it feel when you step into a bear trap? And they're like, what? And I'm
No.
like, come on, like this is the most nat one situation you could possibly be in,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Amazing.
It's so fun to me. I don't know. That's just me. I don't know.
No, it's definitely nat ones can definitely be really great, like comedic moments. I feel like a lot of the time I also use them to kind of force the characters to maybe reveal things that they don't want to. Like not
Ooh,
necessarily that the player doesn't want to, but like the character
right.
wouldn't want to. So if like they get a nat one on like a social interaction or something, I'll basically be like, oh, like what insecurity like do the rest of your like group see in this moment, then, you know, like using it to, it's a story beat instead of just like a failure. It's like something used to also move the story and the relationships along.
I love
So
that.
that way, like, it's still like almost as important as a nat 20, is just like in a very different way.
Yeah, of course. That is. I'm probably gonna steal a little bit of
Yeah,
that. I'm not
absolutely
gonna
do.
lie. That is that's something I haven't thought about before. That's awesome. I really like that a lot. How do you go about like creating situations for your players to kind of like reveal things about themselves that kind of like do you create a story that has bits and pieces of their backstory in it,
Oh,
and how do you
absolutely.
kind of
Yeah.
like go about that? Because as I've always
I
kind of struggled a little bit.
I very heavily will cater the story to my characters' backstories. I think it's always important to me that when you're playing a game that it feels like a story about the players.
Of course.
I know a lot of people have different opinions, you know, on that, but the way I like to tell TTRPGs is like if you're the player in it, like you're the main character, like you like this story is about you guys. It's not necessarily about like a situation that I came up with that you're completely detached from, because then they don't care as much about it. You know, when it
Right,
relates
right.
to stuff that they came up with, they're going to be way more invested in it. Um, so we haven't necessarily gotten there in my Fey Dark Eclipse Feywild group, but in the Shadowfell group, like we've been playing a lot with their backstories. Um, and it's kind of like everybody fighting their own inner demons in these like dark domain of dread settings. And so yeah, like heavily influenced by the character backstories, and yeah, like a lot of the NPCs I'll pull from their backstories and things like that, and just making sure that their story is very woven into the world and the overarching tale.
Yeah, I love that. Does that take do you do like a very in-depth session zero, or do you have like many conversations going on before the session zero?
I really let the players kind of decide like how much or how little they want to flesh out, and I kind of just like, work with what they give me. You know, some people gave me, you know, like a page and a half of content to work from. Other people gave me like a couple sentences, and it's kind of just like being able to like extrapolate from that, or like dive in and really like take the parts of this that will mesh best with the others. um Another thing that I did specifically for this campaign that I've kind of sort of incorporated into other campaigns now,
Mm-hmm.
is that I ask what a short-term goal is, a long-term goal that they have, a fear, and a desire. And so having those four answers allows me to craft like stories and even just sessions that they are invested in or having like some kind of emotional reaction to. You know, like if one of my characters is afraid of water, like we going on a boat. let's face that. You know, things like that. And then with desires, like you put the what the party needs and what the player wants in front of them and see what they do kind of thing is always a fun thing to rely on and watch that internal struggle. So yeah, those are like little things that I do to like make sure that people are engaged in each session and that their stories are progressing and we're seeing character growth and stuff like that.
That is amazing.
Thanks.
I will be really honest with you. I was very excited just to have the interview, but I have gotten to a point where like I feel like I'm just having a learning session, like how to just be a better DM. And this is I think I've wrote I've written down like a bunch of notes on the side here. It's just like do this better and add this
Aw.
to the game here. Like this is super awesome. We definitely have a few listeners who really, 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 truly appreciate the TTRPG and D&D talk that we have on the show, because everyone's always trying to get better when it
I think
comes to
that's a quality
being,
of like almost every player and GM I've ever met is that they're
yeah,
constantly trying to like get better at their craft and things just because it's about, having fun yourself but also you know providing fun for other people and that's always a
of
really nice feeling. So
course.
you always want to be like good at that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've had many talks before about watching the quote unquote professional D&D players or the professional DMs and stuff. And I've had many talks before where I say, hey, these are amazing to watch, and they tell beautiful, intricate stories and stuff. But it's also set and designed to be like, a storytelling, device and stuff.
Hmm.
And one of the most important things, for me at least, is like, when you DM, like make it your own.
Hmm.
Be the DM that you want to be, tell the story that you want to play, tell, and then and create a world that you want to create. So I wanted to ask if when you come across someone who has never played Dungeons and Dragons before,
Hmm.
and they really really want to get into it, what is something that you tell the new players to really solidify playing D&D, and how do you go about introducing them into the world of Dungeons and Dragons?
So specifically with my newbie group of players for Fate Dark Eclipse, it was they had played Baldur's Gate 3, so they kind of had an idea of what was going on a little bit with like mechanics and things.
Nice.
But for most part, it was getting them comfortable role playing. Like
Yes.
crunchy numbers weren't necessarily the issue, though. Like walking them through like the character creation process, just explaining what different things are. I feel like that's like a lot of people do that, but it
Yeah.
was getting them comfortable being their characters, which was not necessarily a struggle, but I think that that's kind of something hard to just get thrown into if you've never done it before. So it's speaking to them in character and at first allowing them to be like, well, my character does this. And then me saying, like, okay, if they say that, like, how does it sound when they say that? Like, what are the
Right.
actual words that they use? Like, play with me. And recently, when I did bring a little bit more experienced player into the group, and that helped a lot because I think sometimes just having the GM to like riff off of can be a little intimidating. So having another player there that was also engaging with them and that made them open up a lot. And so like the recent episode with that group was much more role play heavy because they were finally more comfortable. We're on like episode 3 with that group now. And so like watching them go from little players who aren't doing that as much and more like just describing like oh my character talks to this character about this thing instead of like actually role playing it out, and now they're like fully role playing it out every time. So that has been a really fun progression to see, and that's probably my favorite thing about teaching new people and like watching them open up and start to really
Yeah,
enjoy the game and stuff.
absolutely.
Hmm.
That is so cool. I love that so much. I always tell like new players, or at least the groups and stuff, we bring like a new person in or something, and I always say like, hey, listen, don't, so sorry,
Hey, you're fine.
got a phone call and it like shut all my stuff off. um there was I always love telling my new players and new to the group, when it comes to role playing, to just be yourself, but also to play around with the idea of being that character. And you don't have to put on like a persona immediately, but enjoying the just play around with like a voice. We
Mm.
heard in a previous episode, somebody gave the advice of just doing it like in the car, driving
Okay.
around, just messing around with like a voice or so. You're just you're driving, you throw the voice on, just commentating on life around you, but as that character. And I was like, oh, that's a brilliant way to kind of go about. And that was like, just from then, like a lot of my own NPC character voices spawned that
Mm-hmm.
way, and it's very fun. But I also think that as a DM, the comfort level of getting really into the RP is a little. You get a lot more practice, is I guess is what I'm
Yeah,
saying,
for
because
sure.
we have so many characters. We have so many characters. Everyone always wants to be a little more unique. What you want to have this character to have, maybe they've got a little devious side to them. So you gotta make sure that the voice at least kind of portrays it a little bit. You want to have you have just a very fluffy, lovable character and stuff. I have a wonderful little character duo that I love wholeheartedly, and they will be in every one of my campaigns forever. And of course, as a DM, I couldn't react when one of my lovable reoccurring characters died last week, and
Oh
I'm still sad about it.
no, I'm
All right.
sorry.
Yeah, I have a little goblin named Swimble, and his best friend, who is an awoken rat named Chuck.
Amazing. I love that.
And they travel together. They both have the stereotypical crazy sad backgrounds, but they found each other, and they live basically working together to do this. And it was really fun bringing them into the nine hells, because you're like, how is this such a sweet little duo doing in
Mhm.
hell? And you're like, oh, that makes sense actually. And it's just such a fun thing to be able to bring those character voices back. I love it.
Cool.
um what is some what is like a, I guess, advice that you would give to someone who is looking to be a DM?
Ooh. Um, Work with your players. It is a collaborative story. Uh, Try not to like get too in your head about you telling a story, and make it more about you guys are telling a story together is like the best advice I can give, I think. Um, yeah, just yeah, work with them so that they're invested in the world.
That's awesome. I actually completely agree. Um, do you recommend that as a DM that you dive into any resources, or
Ooh.
maybe like other like published art, books and stuff, to get like a better idea as to maybe like the world around it?
I will say I made the mistake of trying to do homebrew first, and I don't recommend doing that because you don't know how to
Really?
balance things yet.
Actually, yeah, no, okay, yeah, no, I agree with you. All
Like
right, yeah.
I would recommend finding a module that you're interested in, reading that book, and then running that game first to see what pacing works, what like mechanics you like, what mechanics you don't like. Um, because I think that that helped me a lot when I then went on to make homebrew content, because I kind of had like an established of like, this is how the pacing should be, this is how this is the information that you need to know going forward. um I've also learned that it is way more important to know a character's motivations than like, if a player does this, how do they react? Like, it's much more important to know what the character's motivations are for an NPC, like what they're after and things, because then it allows you to react to what the players are doing a little bit easier, instead of like having like a set rule book of players do this, this is what happens kind of thing, like a web. That seems to like make things a little bit easier. And yeah, I think just reading what is out there first to then learn what the rules are and then learn how to break them properly. It's kind of like the same thing that you're kind of taught in art school, which is learn the foundations of what is there so that you can break those rules later in a meaningful way. And I think that applies to Dungeons and Dragons as well.
Absolutely. That's probably one of the best things I've heard in a long time
Oh,
is learning the rules so that you know how to break them properly. That
mhm.
is brilliant. Um I have to admit something probably horrible in the D&D community, but I have very many modules, and I have read a bunch of them. I
Mhm.
have never DM'd a module before.
But you've at
And
least read them, which is really the
yes.
main thing that I'm getting after is like know what's out there.
Yeah.
So I tried to make a homebrew setting without ever reading a
Oh no, I did the
module,
same thing on my very
and
first
that
game. Yeah.
was it was a little bit of a catastrophe in some aspects. Granted,
Yeah.
some very funny things came out of it. Like I went into that and just made like the most meta store ever. What I had done really is I had listened to the Adventure Zone, their first season
Yeah.
balance, and then I tried to make my own homebrew setting.
Yeah.
And I so they have Fantasy Costco, and I had made Fantasy Walmart that was run by Snoopy because theirs is run by Garfield.
I forgot
Um,
about Fancy
and
Costco.
and
Yeah.
so yeah, I had Fantasy Walmart, and like the things that I put in there were like as like magic items were like Scooby snacks, Sailor Moon's tiara, like, and I made D&D like rules for all these
Yeah.
items, and so that aspect was hilarious, and my players loved that.
I
But like,
love that.
but for story, the pacing was so off. The balancing for encounters
Mm,
was terrible, and so like those are things that I learned later. But like the ridiculousness of it was still very fun.
that's awesome. I love that so much. That is that's fantastic. I've made a couple of I think every DM has made mistakes before.
Oh, of course, yeah, it's a learning
I
experience.
yeah, I think my biggest like learning experience for when I was DMing, I think it was like my first campaign. And I did the same. I made the mistake. I tried to make an entire world
Mm-hmm.
with no we had played a couple games of D&D, and I was like, this is so fun. I want to be in control of everything. I want to try
Uh-huh.
like being a DM. And so I want to do all of these things, and I want to just have the freedom to do it. And so that was what I ended up going with. And I had these story moments that I wanted to happen so badly that I actually broke our campaign to the point where it slowly fizzled out,
Yeah.
and like we couldn't continue the game. And it was solely because I did the one thing a DM should never do, and I made a player's decision for them.
Ooh,
And
yeah.
yeah, and that is my my badge of shame that I will forever carry around as a DM. And and the player that the character, the player, um, really great friend of mine, and is a very supportive person. So they tried to kind of run with the idea, and didn't like it, but didn't do it in a way that made, like, we didn't have a disagreement, we didn't go at it, kind of thing. They just decided that their character didn't like what was going on with their character decisions and choices.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of going in the direction that they needed to, he turned around and he ran into the woods, and like separated from the party and was gone, and we never saw that character again. And so when we continued on, another character in that same party didn't like that, like the character build or something that they had made. And so when an opportunity came, to the first time they were meeting physically face to face, the BBG, he switched sides on us and
Oh,
went with the
interesting.
BBG, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
now we have one player character who's been there since the very beginning of the game, and that character dies. And so I'm like, at this point, there are, even if you all make new characters again, no one knows what's happened from this point
Yeah.
before. So there's no, like, at this point we have to call it like the bad guy won. And
Mm-hmm.
later I had a really, very deep, very cool conversation with the original character that I made the player decision for, and it was a huge learning experience. And it is like literally the one rule that sits in the back of my head every time I start a session with any group,
Mm-hmm.
because it was such a pivotal moment on my learning experience as a DM.
Yeah, I mean, everybody makes mistakes when they're starting out, and I think it's just having those hard conversations and learning and growing from it is just what's going to make you a better player and a better DM. Um, but yeah, I've made tons of mistakes, like as a GM, but player autonomy is definitely important. And as someone who has had player autonomy taken from them in a game as a player, like that can really like hurt sometimes. So like I'm glad that you guys like are good friends and were able to like sort through it, but I can definitely
Mm-hmm.
see how like something like that can, implode a game a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it also really worked out because I'm a big believer in having each game and each situation, scenario, which have you. Everything always has to be a safe space.
Hmm.
Everyone, I very highly encourage, like, if something, because I'm running the 9 layers of hell. Hell's obviously not like a land full of rainbows and sunshine. Like, it's
Yeah.
a pretty messed up place,
Hmm.
and so we do hit some dark subjects. And so I always make sure I'm like, hey, listen, like, I have my preferences, so I will never push past my comfortability. But I also need to know that, like, if we do get to a point that is maybe like a triggering thing or something that pushes a little too close to a boundary that you don't necessarily want to, have or interact with, like, we all have, the code phrase or the button on the Discord. We always have,
Hmm.
this, that, or the other thing. Like, it's always, always, always a safe space and area. And that's a big thing for me with when it comes to streaming, when it comes to being, playing TTRPGs, when it comes to doing the podcast. Like, I feel like you're only going to get the best out of a player or out of, a guest or out of, your community if you, present that safe space. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And that's why I think session zeros are so incredibly important.
Yeah, absolutely. In every single game that I run, I have my players in session zero fill out the RPG consent form, which is
Mm.
just kind of like the standardized form where it goes through a bunch of different triggers and you put down green, yellow, or red for where your comfortability is with each topic. And then I will cater the story to that generally. Um,
Oh,
and
wow.
that's kind of like just my way about going with it. And then also we use, stoplight during games. So if somebody is having an issue, they can say yellow and we go off of that topic, or red and that's a hard stop, we go to break to discuss
Yeah,
what's going on.
absolutely.
So yeah, that's the way that I handle safety and safety tools in my games. But I also know a lot of people use lines and veils, which is great. I may start to incorporate that into my games as well. And then just, very open communication with your players and things.
Can you tell me more about lines and veils?
Sure. So, lines and veils is a safety tool where players write down a line or a veil. Veil means that it is something that you're not super comfortable with, but it can happen out of scene. So,
Oh, okay.
whereas a hard line is not in the game at all. And that's kind of like the difference versus like stoplight system, which works off of green, yellow, and red. Lines and veils is more so like this can happen off camera, basically, versus this should not be in the game at all. So just a little bit of a different way of approaching it.
I love that. That is so awesome. I'm also I really like that you care as much about the making sure it's a safe space, because it really is truly important.
Hmm.
We talk a lot about on the show making sure that we have like the safe spaces, but also like making sure that we're mental health is always a super important thing.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so it's really nice to like be able to um have that common ground, especially when it comes to like a DM. Like it's
Hmm.
very important, at least in my opinion. Like it's very important that your DM also feels that way.
Yeah, I mean,
Because
I don't want to traumatize a player.
of
That would be
course,
awful.
yeah, no, of course. Um, and I've had many conversations with even like players in
Hmm.
games where I'm like, the question has been bounced around like, can we die in this game? And I go,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah. Like you're not invulnerable. Like I mean, you might be like the main characters, but like you don't know how the game could end. Like the story might end with your death. Like oh,
Hmm.
who knows? Um, but like also you're not like completely invulnerable to all of these things. And I always want like my players to know that like yes, you can die in the game. The key is that I'm not actively trying to murder you,
Yeah.
because if I kill all the player characters, um, I don't you don't win at D&D. It just means I don't have a game anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I've put so much time and effort into creating a world for you to play in. If you all die, like it's what I just blew a Saturday for no reason. Like, like come on,
Hmm.
Well, I gotta say, this has been an absolute pleasure to be able to have the opportunity to speak with you today. Um, I've been very much looking forward to doing this, and I'm very happy that we got this opportunity. At the end of every episode, I
Hmm.
always love to keep the floor completely open for you
Okay.
to plug anything and everything, and I mean go for it. If
All
you have
right.
a project you're working on, all the way to a sandwich you had last week. Like, go nuts.
Okay. So hi everybody. I'm Janelle, or you can find me at Boss Jellybean pretty much all over the internet. I am the DM for Fade Arc Eclipse on my Twitch channel, Boss Jellybean. I'm also a member of Castleton on Winter's Tales, which is a massive 150 player stream. It's Hunger Games meets Bridgerton, and over there I play Vera Armadam. And I'm also
Nice.
in charge of the design team for the website for Castleton. I'm also a part of the Candela Obscura games on Twisted Fates channel. What else? I'm part of Three Quills Publishing, which our most recent Kickstarter just ended, but we will be launching another one in October for a full Candela Obscura campaign book. Um, what else do we got going on? I am going to be running a Stoneburner one shot in October. I believe it's October 28th, and that is Dwarves in Space, which is going to be really fun. I'm also going to be running a Salvage Union one shot, which is a game where you build these massive mechs in a post-apocalyptic world, and that is going to be on what day is that? Shoot. I got so many things running around here. Salvage Union is going to be October 13th. Um, and then I'm also going to be starting as a player in the Horde of Tiamat, which is a campaign that is based on. Oh my gosh, I completely just blanked on the name of the actual campaign, but I think it's Horde of the Dragon Queen. That's a campaign about fighting Tiamat's cultists,
Yes.
except this version of it is we're playing as the cultists, so that's going to be
Oh, no
really
way.
fun. Yeah, and I'm going to be joining them on September 18th. That's going to be on Wednesdays on YouTube, I believe.
Nice. That's coming up.
I'm also joining the cast of Shadows of Ashclean, which is run by Mr. Dandy DM. And that's a homebrew setting from his mind that I'm going to be joining. I built a crazy OP character. She's based on Iron Man, and she has 23
Yeah.
AC and can fly, and I'm very excited about it.
Nice.
And then what's the last thing I got going on? Also Dino Crisis on Twisted Fates, which is going to be September 13th and 20th, where we are playing the 10 Candles system in a Jurassic Park game. So we're all going to get
Wow.
eaten by dinosaurs.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got a bunch of stuff going on. I'll
I'd
be
say.
putting up schedules on my socials. So if any of these sounded interesting, go check it out. And I'm sure there's a million things that I forgot to mention. So
That is incredible. Well, at after we finish the recording, if you don't mind, send me all of those links, and I
sure, yeah,
always put those at the bottom of the description under each of the episodes. This has truly that is so much stuff to go on.
Yeah, I'm realizing
so
that's not
busy.
even everything. I didn't mention this other project, Legends and Lore, that I'm a part of, which is with Crit Eat and Grin, where it's a DM roundtable. We switch who the DM is every game.
Oh, nice.
I think that's coming out in November. And then last project I'm a part of that I should be plugging is Somebody's Heroes, which is a large, I want to say 30-person campaign where there are 3 different adventuring parties, and in this world it's called The Fall of Taloliva. And in that one, I'm playing a little plasmoid goo girl who is like 3 days old. She was a gelatinous cube, and then through a science experiment, she is now a person. So that's
I love
also
that.
going to be very fun.
That is so awesome. I love those like the roundtable concepts.
It's been super fun.
Yeah, we have this like little thing going on with like anytime we're introducing people to like D&D and stuff, we'd like only have time for just like a super quick like one shot. Which the funny thing is that your published work is going to be a part of our little like story thing that we've been building. It is it's basically like you walk into a tavern, it's a lot of things are going on, it's a rainy day, you're sitting down, you're just trying to get some food and a drink or whatever, and there's a group of people sitting around the bartender, and they say, well, you think that was a story, let me tell you about the time, and then it's like da and then that story is the one shot that we're playing.
Oh,
it's
I
like,
love that. That's so fun.
Yeah, and did I ever tell you about how we returned the keys to this, that, and the other thing, or have you ever wondered why the mountains in the distance look the way they do? Well, let me tell you. And it's like it's all these stories are just the one shots, and we're just slowly building the lore of the land around this like blank canvas of a story one shot thing. And so I love the roundtable concepts. It's so fun.
I'm excited to see how that turns out.
Well, thank you so unbelievably much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Please, everyone, go check out the links below. Please go support. It's you will not regret it. And please get your hands on the Festive Three. I have been loving going through it. It truly is so fun. I love the concept, and especially if you're looking to get a super fun, a holiday one shot, going on for your group as a little treat as a DM to say thank you to all of your players. This is the one shot you definitely want to be doing. It is so fun. So once again, thank you so unbelievably much for being here.
It's been fun.
If you want to find myself or the show, we are on Instagram at Phoenix Stewart, and you can also find the show on Instagram and TikTok at Who What Now Pod. We always post clips of the shows from before and of shows that are coming up. You can always find us on Twitch every Saturday, Sunday, and Monday from 7 p.m. to midnight, and Mondays from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. At twitch.tv/Phoenix Stewart. All links will be below. And as always, please go outside, look up at the sky, feel the sun on your face, hug a tree, and high five a squirrel. And we will catch you on the next one.